If you've seen my videos, you know I am obsessed with mechanical watches and watchmaking. Now, to me, watchmaking, that's my hobby, that's not my job. So the question is, how do you get started in something that can be as complex as watchmaking? I got in contact with DIY Watch Club, and they were willing to send me one of their watch kits. And this allows you to assemble a watch yourself without having to have any knowledge beforehand. DIY Watch Club sent me this dive watch to assemble, and I'm actually going to do this with you in 2 steps. We will just unbox everything and take a closer look at all the watch parts and tools that come with the watch kit, and we will actually build the watch. At the end of the video, I will share my thoughts with you about whether a watchmaking kit like this is something for you or not. If we open the package, we immediately see all the components of the watch. And we will take a closer look at the watch parts at a later stage in this video. We also then get a little envelope with additional information and a way to sign up for the tutorial video to build the watch. Further down in the box, we have the toolkit. And I really actually like this because it comes in this separate box, which really looks quite good. And it also keeps everything very neatly in place. This means that you can not only use this toolkit for the watch that you're building yourself, but you can keep it and use it to work on different watches. So let's get into the tools that come with this watch kit. We have a case opening and case closing tool that can be adapted for different sizes of screw down case backs. This is not specific to the exact watch you're building. You can always use this later on. So this little leather pad, which you can use to assemble the watch on to work on a surface that might contaminate your watch parts. We have a loop. We have this little blower to keep dust off the movement and watch parts. We also have this tool here, which is not exactly a watchmaking tool. And actually in the beginning, I didn't really know what that was. But this is actually a stand for your cell phone or your tablet. It shows you how much they thought about the process and to make it as easy as possible. And they even thought of a stand for your cell phone. We also have finger protection so that you don't get any fingerprints on your watch dial or movement. And the little green putty there, that's called Rodico. That's a sort of silly putty that helps you to pick up pieces and also dust. The little gray thing, that is a dial protector so that if you slip, you don't slip across the dial. Then we also have a piece of wood with a flat side and a pointed side. You can use that to arrest pieces in place or to adjust things. We have a pair of nicely pointed and light action tweezers. Very good for control when handling watch parts. And of course we have a screwdriver. And we have 2 hand removal tools in case you put them on wrong. And they are actually made from solid metal, so very good quality. We have 2 tools to put the hands on the dial, and that's the toolkit for you. So after we looked at the tools, let's take a closer look at the components that actually make up the watch. All of the parts that make up the watch are pre-packed in this component pack, and this is then added to your order. Let's open this real quick. And we can already see a couple of obvious things. We have, for example, a dial. This is the bezel insert. That's the aluminum ring that's put into the bezel. That seems to be the hands. This is the movement. The movement on this watch is actually a Seiko TMI NH35. And then we have the case, which is a stainless steel case. The crown and stem are already integrated, and what's also pretty nice is that we have a display case back. The strap is a rubber silicone type strap with quick release spring bars. So let's start the assembly process. For that, first of all, we don't need the case, we only need the dial and the movement. Make sure that everything is clean and that there is no dust. And you will see me do that time and time again during the entire process. So carefully take out the dial. You want to avoid to touch it with your bare fingers because that might leave some fingerprints. And on the back side of the dial, there are these two pins. You see me grab the dial right there. Those two pins fit exactly into two prefabricated holes on the dial side of the movement, so we can just push the dial onto the movement. And those holes are right there and there. Carefully line everything up and push down on the dial, obviously only with the protected fingers. And then make sure that the dial is seated on the movement all the way around without a gap. We can now place that movement back in its container just to protect it from dust and move to the next part, which is to prepare the hands. DIY Watch Club sends you 2 sets of hands in case you bend or break a hand in the process, which is pretty nice. Then make sure that there's no dust. And I like to use the dial protector that is commonly used to protect the dial when you pull the hands from the dial, also during assembly, because, if you slip with the tool that you use to push down on the hands, you don't go directly on the dial. So the first hand we start with is the hour hand, and the orientation doesn't really matter because it's the first hand and we don't have a date indication here. And then it's to find the correct size hole on the tool. Remember, we have 2 tools with a combined of 4 options to find the right one for the hour hand. Push down on it gently and, increase the pressure. And then check everything and make sure that there's enough distance between the hand and the dial. And there's also enough space above the hand where the 2 other hands go. Then also the hour hand should not be slanted or warped, and it should move freely. Then we can move on to the minute hand. And this time I want them both exactly aligned at 12 o'clock, because obviously if that's not the case, the watch is not showing the time correctly. Then we have to find the correct tool for the minute hand and repeat the process. You can always use that piece of wood to make sure that the hands align. That looks good. So now again, making sure that there's enough space between the hands and that the hands are not bent and sit flat and evenly. And then we go for the seconds hand. You can take the tweezers to lift the hand directly onto the pivot where it will be pressed onto. And then there is a tool with a flat side, and you can use the flat side to gently press down on the second hand. With the second hand, one thing to watch out for is that you push it down enough so that it does not protrude too much from the dial, because there's very little space in between the dial and the crystal of the case. Turn the hands, check everything, make sure that the hands move freely and do not rub on each other, and then we can cover up the movement again. That brings us to the case. And maybe your first instinct is to want to install the bezel, but that actually is really not a very good idea, because how do you align the bezel? So we really have to put the movement into the case. For that, we first pull the crown. Crown and stem are pre-sized by DIY Watch Club, so you do not have to trim down the stem, which is a great thing. It makes it so much easier. Then we take the case opening tool and open the case back. I like to store the case back and the case with the top side up, just to prevent any dust from falling and collecting in the parts. That makes for a cleaner process. So then we can take out the movement. First of all, we have to get rid of the crown that's currently in there. That's sort of a placeholder. The movement comes that way from the factory. Make sure that there's no dust in the case. If there's still dust in it, you can use the green piece of Rodico to pick pieces of dust out of the case or movement. In order to relieve the movement of its crown, there's this little lever there that you have to push, and then you can pull it. And then I use its case to flip it over. and orientate it correctly. One last blow of air, and then you can put the movement into the watch. Make sure that the movement is firmly seated. That looks good. Yeah. And if it's well aligned, you can just push in the crown with the stem and everything should move freely by now. If stem and movement do not line up, you probably have to take out the movement out of the case again, or you can use the piece of wood to turn the movement in the case. Then we take off the protective plastic off the case back and install the case back. I like to line everything up by hand first and just screw it as far as it will go to make sure that the gasket underneath is not twisted. And then I'll use the case opening tool. And that's the first impression of the watch. So now it's time for the bezel. The bezel is actually glued into place. It has adhesive tape on the back side. Make sure that everything is clean again, and then we can pull off the paper. And I like to do this upside down here because with the camera in the way, this is how I can see better. Make sure that there's no back play in the bezel. Then you can use the 12 o'clock position to align your bezel. Give it a firm press down so that the tape makes contact with the steel bezel itself, that everything is firmly in place. And that's our watch. So the very last step right now is to put the strap on the watch. And that's really very easy because of the quick release spring bars. So you just put it in on one side and then you pull the little pin and then the strap snaps in place. And there we have it. That's the watch. That's how easy it is. Well, actually, of course, that takes a little bit more time than the about 15 minutes we had right here. But DIY Watch Club provides you with a video that guides you through the entire process step by step. I did sort of like a shortcut version. I have done this a couple of times just so that you get an idea on what you roughly have to do. This is a process that if you've never done that before, you should obviously take your time. But it's no rocket science, and everyone can do that. And that brings us precisely to the people that I think this watchmaking kit is for. If you have already built or assembled your own watches and modded some watches, then this set is maybe not for you. Maybe it is not exciting enough anymore. Aside from the fact that you might like the design options and the different models that DIY Watch Club provides. There are really some very nice looking watches there. But I actually think that this watchmaking kit is precisely for people who have absolutely zero experience working with watches like that. And that's why it makes a great gift. If you know that someone likes watches, but they've never tried to work on one, that's a great first step to help them make their first steps into actually working on watches. And for that, I think the price is quite fair. You know, the watches from DIY Watch Club range between around $240 to around $900, depending on what kind of movement is used and what kind of quality grade the watch is. But you do get some very nice watches for around $250. So thank you for watching this video. If you like content like this, feel free to subscribe to my channel, and I hope to see you in the next video.